What does it mean to be a Catholic woman in society, the government, and the church? With so many differing opinions these days, we'll try to get to the real truth tonight. So please stay with us. Welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, our chance to bring you guests from all over the world. Before we get to our guest, I want to mention that today's feast is that of two early martyrs, Saints Perpetua and Felicity. They were both from North Africa, and they were tossed to the wild animals to be killed for their faith. And we have one of the earliest stories of martyrdom being about them. And so they died in 203 and are still celebrated to this day. Now it's appropriate that we have two women saints for today. Hopefully their martyrdom won't be a presage of anything with our guests, but our guests tonight are not stranger to social pressures by any means, and the pressures that are on women to conform to a certain point of view. That's why they got together to create a different viewpoint to help women deal with those pressures in a positive, godly way. So please welcome the hosts of the Catholic View for Women, Astrid Bennett Gutierrez, Janet Moranna, and Teresa Tomeo. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome. Well, are you three ladies having a good time this week making your series?
We are having a great time.
Absolutely.
We are having a blast. We are having so much fun. The only problem is that we all three of us talk so much and we only have 30 minutes.
We watch the clock running down. It's like, oh,
it's nothing. So, no, but it's going very well. Yeah, very well.
Oh, that's good.
Yes,
that's good.
Yes.
What are some of the topics you're taking?
Well, of course, we're going to do another show on contraception, but going into more depth and detail. We're covering IVF.
IVF is what?
In vitro fertilization, and people don't understand, the church is against it, yes, but they don't even understand what's going on with that. And we're going to flip that to naprotechnology, which is the proper way that Dr. Hilges and others developed to help people who unfertile couples. So the church is not saying we're not going to help you, but there's a right way and a wrong way. And we actually titled these a couple shows called Weird Science, because we're talking about the problems with egg harvesting. College women are being exploited now. They're being tempted to sell their eggs to help pay their college tuition. I mean, there's a lot of hard-hitting issues. And of course, with the contraception thing, with the conscience mandate now, we've got to really delve deeper into the harm of the pill. And basically, Pope Paul VI and the church had it right all along. And the pill figure, because the pill is really harmful to women on a medical perspective. And then we're going to bring in experts to really drive through and show the science is as God had it right along, but science proves it out. And there's a lot of other topics, fun shows like Rosary Workout.
We took a whole show to pick
Rosary Workout. What do you do to your rosary?
Well, actually, there's a workout program. There's a wonderful author and speaker, Peggy Bose. She was on the journey home, and she's already shared her testimony with Marcus. And the book is a wonderful book. It's called The Rosary Workout, as Janet said, and she actually has developed, she's a physical trainer. She was in the Air Force, and she is a revert to the faith, and she developed this beautiful exercise plan incorporating the mysteries and the decades of the Rosary, where you can start out at a lower pace if you're not one who's exercised quite a bit, but then you work up to the full decade. It's really an interesting concept, but that's our show on faith and fitness. And then we took a whole show to pick on Astrid, being the single one in the bunch. And two shows.
Why did they pick on you?
In a good way, too.
Oh, I'm sure it's a good way. Let her talk for herself.
Just imagine, Father, oh my goodness, Janet and Teresa, oh goodness. It's about the third vocation, being single. So basically, we explored how it really is a valid way of life. And many women do live out this vocation, serving the church, serving society. I am single myself, and I am dedicated to the pro-life movement. I direct a center that is in the middle of 9 abortion clinics in LA. So my hands are full serving that community. My community, I'm Hispanic, and also Hispanics for Life, serving the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, assisting Archbishop Gomez with establishing Hispanic Respect Life committees, which are so needed. So I pour my heart out, my time, doing this work, which I love, which fulfills me. And then I found through working on these shows that there are many other women, Joan Lewis, Katrina Zeno, that are also living the single life fully, vibrantly, and happily. So we want to just basically address that issue because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They're uncomfortable, addressing it. And, we get teased and, taunted too.
But one of the things about being single that I can speak to, in a certain sense, because I'm not exactly single, but, there is a freedom that you have with your time.
The availability.
Exactly. You're much more available to serve outside the family. While when you're married, you have to be available to serve inside the family.
Yes.
And it's 2 different realms.
Right.
And it's so needed in today's society. Father, we have 4,000 babies being aborted. We have so much lack of information on topics like contraception, so much going on. There have to be people out there in the grassroots and in society serving to be able to correct some of these social ills.
And actually, the suggestion for the show on the single life was a suggestion that was given to us last year. We had the pilot program, the 6 episodes, and then when EWTN was gracious enough and we were so excited to make it a full-fledged series, which will air this fall, we asked our viewers, what do you want to learn more about? And we had a lot of women writing in, said we want to hear, we want to talk about the single life because it's an area that is unfortunately still, I don't think we address it as well as we could because it's a vocation. It could be a vocation. And so that's what we're looking at. We're calling it the 3rd vocation and we're doing 2 shows on it. And we feature Joan Lewis from EWTN who has an amazing life, of course, in Rome as the Rome Bureau Chief and a single woman.
In addition to Joan, we went over to Rome, Teresa and I, to do Joan's interview, and
it was a rough job, Father, but somebody had to do it. We had to go all the way to Rome, and
you're just a Christian martyr.
I know,
but you won't put up with
dragging the camera through the streets of Rome on a beautiful sunny day in front of St. Peter's, but we survived, all for the show.
All.
Just a Christian martyr.
Right. But, in addition, we had some amazing guests from the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace, the Undersecretary, Dr. Familia Giovanelli. She's the Undersecretary, so now we were raising up a woman, not only that she's single, but she has the position right under the Cardinal. So for people out there who say, oh, the church oppresses women, well, she has this very high Vatican position. And also we interviewed 2 women, again single, but they work inside the Secretary of the State. Which is
for the Vatican.
For the Vatican,
right.
Exactly.
Which is one of the most important offices in the Vatican.
In the Vatican. So we thought this was a good idea to raise up these women who are in these high-level positions within the church, within the Roman Curia, and yet are single and devoting their life to the church.
That sounds good. One of the things you brought up is this mandate, that the Health and Human Services is imposing upon the church and that the Obama administration is trying to impose on the church. Did you talk about that as well?
Oh, yes.
What did you have to say?
Yes. Well, there's not enough time to talk about how concerned we are about the mandate, and that's something that I've been hitting every single day in my radio show because it's so important. And even people, I think, in our viewing and listening audience, because they're busy and they have their lives, and we want to make sure they're getting all the information because this is on the large scale. It is a religious liberty issue. If this is approved, if it's not, defeated in the courts, and God forbid it is mandated for the church. I even talked to a bishop who's a friend of mine in the Archdiocese of Detroit who says the next thing they're going to go make the church do is pay for abortions. It is going down that way. There's no other way.
This is the logical conclusion. I've been saying that exactly.
But we're trying to do on this show, and thanks be to God, because I don't know of any other show like ours where we're allowed to talk about these things because the media won't let us. And so it's so important to have as many opportunities as possible on the airwaves, Catholic and otherwise, but since it's not out there, thank God we have the radio and TV to do this on. But to let women know that women who don't contracept or are like us and did for a while and then came back to the church and thank God we have confession and we're able to heal our lives from the damage that it did, to be able to say, look, you're not alone. And this is not good for women. This is damaging in so many ways. Janet mentioned the physical, but it's spiritual, it's emotional. Who knew the church was right, okay? I mean, the church, as Archbishop Chaput says, when we engage the culture, we should never be worried as Catholics because the Catholic Church has the dignity of every single person at heart, not just Catholic people, all of us, because it's God's understanding. It's who we are as people. So we do talk about it. Absolutely.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up to you, because there are two sets of business going on with that HHS issue. On one hand, the church is focusing on our constitutional rights, that we do have a right to freedom of religion, and that means non-interference from the government.
Absolutely.
And that the so-called wall of separation was something Thomas Jefferson talked about.
Letter to the Danbury Baptist, not in the First Amendment.
To protect the church from the government.
Right.
Not the other way around, but it's used the other way around. But then there's this other issue, and this is one that I think you're addressing. The politicians and their cohorts are trying to divert this away from a First Amendment issue into an issue of being oppressive to women.
That's right.
By not giving them their right to be given.
But that's not true. Contraception is available at the local drugstore, at the corner of Planned Parenthood.
Look at Planned Parenthood. They're giving it out for free to women. I mean, Astrid could tell you in the clinics that are surrounding her clinic, 9 Planned Parenthoods, they're giving away the birth control pills absolutely free.
And in terms of oppression of women, it's the other way around. It's contraception and that lifestyle and that mentality that oppresses women. True freedom is understanding who we are, how we're designed, and why these things, these rules and these commandments, it's not a big no, it's a big yes, as Pope Benedict says, why this is the best thing for us. But see, nobody will, when we talk about issues below the belt, that's when all these quote-unquote freedoms come in. Nobody sits there and says, well, most people are going 10 miles over the speed limit, so they should basically, make the speed limit a lot higher than it already is. Or most young people are drinking before they're, of legal age, either 19 or 21, so we might as well lower the drinking age to 14.
Don't forget lying. Most people are lying.
Most people lie, exactly.
At different times.
It's only the issues below the belt.
Right.
It's so frustrating to me.
You can just go right down the list.
And it's so frustrating to us because we have limited access to the airwaves. Obviously, as we have Catholic media. But, and you know my background, I worked in the media for years, but the media are twisting this and they're helping to promote this as an oppressive thing for women.
Yeah, it's a women's issue rather than a religious rights issue.
And they're recycled lies. Father, how did we pass Roe versus Wade? Making up these stories, these spins on the truth, and it really is not good for women. We know that. Statistics bear that out, the studies on how it hurts women. And that's what really, I think, motivates us to bring out the truth, to clarify truly what contraception is. It's an abortifacient. Contraception kills babies, hurts women, destroys marriages. We want to bring this out, Father. We have half an hour to do so, so we try to bring out the best studies and stats. We try to bring this forth because that's why this is happening. People don't know the truth. The mainstream does not know the truth.
See, this is a very important thing because you are speaking about this from the perspective of women, married and unmarried. Dealing with this from a perspective that covers a lot of different kinds of life experience, but particularly women's life experience. And you're reflecting on this in a way to help undo some of the things that men like the president are trying to impose.
But I think what's also unique about us is we're not sitting up on some ivory tower saying that we're holier than thou. We each have our own story, and we spent a lot of time away from the church. And so we know what it's like without God and to not follow the teachings of the church, and we know what it's like to live with God. And so we are coming at this from a unique perspective in terms of our work in the pro-life movement, the ministries that we have, but at the same time is, look, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, and it wasn't pretty. And so now we're out there trying to at least prevent some other women and God willing, younger women, especially at the college level. We have a show on that. High school. Now God always allows U-turns, as He did in our lives, over and over again. But you don't have to go down that path. There is a better way, and that is living as a woman, fully accepting your identity as a daughter of the King within the Catholic Church, which is the best place for a woman to be.
That's right.
All right. Now, what are some of the other topics that you deal with? You got rosary workouts, you got contraception, you got the single life. What are some of the other things that you're dealing with?
We are talking a lot about media issues, which is, as you know, my area of expertise. We look at the culture. We're looking at body image issues again. We're doing.
When you say media issues, what do you mean by media issues?
Well, it's a half-hour show, so we have to go quickly. But we're talking about the messages that come from the culture. And we have the whole segment, and Janet interviewed an expert, Dr. Klopanis, on pornography.
Who's Dr. Klopanis?
Dr. Peter Klopanis is a Catholic psychotherapist, but he's done intensive research and developed a lot of things to do with pornography and its effect on men and women. And during his interview, he said that a lot of women don't even realize that their husbands, are addicted to pornography, and they also don't understand how deep that addiction is. He says it's just as bad as the drug of choice. It's like their drug of choice. It's just as addictive as cocaine, as a cocaine addiction. And people don't realize that. And so many times, especially this surfaces usually in a marriage after a woman's had children and her husband just seems to be changing and there's arguments going on. She's blaming herself, thinking, oh, well, yeah, I might have gained a few pounds, since I had the children. He doesn't find me attractive anymore. It's not that. He's just so addicted to pornography. It's that he can't help himself. And so in his interview, he told about different things people can do, how they can find help. Wonderful resources he gave us, and there was even some testimonies of women who had said they never realized, this was a problem in their marriage until they really faced it and sought help and spiritual direction and to try to heal their marriage. So it's an issue that's not spoken about that much. And the other surprising thing he spoke to us about is women are becoming addicted to pornography on the internet, in
but it's
chat
a different
rooms.
type.
It's a different type.
It's a different
It's
type.
not
Exactly.
visual.
It's more of an emotional
It's an
addiction
emotional
in chat rooms and
attachment.
things.
The men are a visual pornography, but what the women are doing are getting into these pornographic chat rooms, and it's relational. And it's becoming very, very addictive for them. And he said that's going to be the next thing that people are going to have to deal with in psychotherapy. The Catholic therapists are going to have to deal with in assisting women to realize that this is an addiction too.
Yeah, I certainly come across it in counseling, and exactly as you say, two different approaches to pornography.
Right.
But one visual for men and one in the chat rooms for women.
Right.
But both of them are very effective in hooking people into this other world. And one of the things that strikes me is how it becomes a way to set false images against which you compare your spouse.
Exactly.
That's right.
And you don't get a chance to see your spouse for who he is or she is on their own terms, but you're comparing them to these other people who are actually pictures or anonymous chats on the computer and not real people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, within the pornography industry, we know that it's another exploitation of women, younger and younger. Sex trafficking, abortion is rampant among the pornography industry because these girls who get pregnant, the directors of these programs just take them off to the abortion clinic. So it's,
and the other issue we bring out in this too is the fact that these women's groups, the National Organization for Women, the NARAL, Pro-Choice Americas, Emily's List, where are they? Why aren't they on the front lines if they're so concerned about women's liberation and the objectification of women and the over-sexualization of girls, which they claim to be all about the woman? We care so much about the woman. They are nowhere to be found on any of these core issues that are affecting women. As a matter of fact, they're on the other side. And in pornography, they won't be on the front lines promoting it, but they're certainly not fighting it, and they're not speaking out about it. And I think that's a huge betrayal of women.
Do people like NARAL and NOW and Emily's List see the pornography as a choice issue? I mean, choice is their favorite value, if not their only value, and or a primary value, not only value, but a primary value. And do they see it as an issue of choice, and therefore they have no moral basis from which to criticize pornography?
Go ahead.
Yeah, they see it as a sexual
liberation
and freedom of expression as well, like a First Amendment right to be able to do this. So it's basically part of secular humanism, Father. When you don't have God, when you separate things from God, you make people into objects, things that can be used. And I like the expression that Jason Everett uses, which is so touching. He says, when you're looking at pornography, you're looking at the corpse of a woman's heart. So what is that? What is pornography? It's destruction of a human being. And I think it really is part of the culture of death, which is what NARAL and these groups espouse. It's just humans as consumption. Yes.
In my book, I interviewed this woman on the other side. She considers herself a feminist. She calls herself pro-choice, but she's a sociologist, Professor Gail Dines. And in my book, Extreme Makeover, I have a quote from her, and she actually wrote a book about this, and she speaks up about the pornography issue, and she's probably one of maybe a handful of people, you would say left of center, that are expressing concern about the lack of outspokenness on the part of these quote-unquote women's groups. And she says that it's about sexual liberation, and they hide behind that when they really should be working to cut back on this, because you can't have it both ways. You can't complain about women being objectified and oppressed and then sit there and support the sex trafficking and pornography industry, even if you're not doing it up front, you know, behind the scenes. So it's there's a lot of topics, and I just really feel, I think probably for us, and we were talking about, we did an interview with the National Catholic Register, March Fenelon, yesterday, and she said, you know, what is it? You guys have such great chemistry. And I said, well, there's a passion, because again, we've been on the other side, and I think right now time is of the essence, and I get a feeling in some churches and in some circles, even in the Catholic world, that people still want to stay away from the truth, or let's soften the truth, or let's get together and sing Kumbaya, or let's not put this out here, you know, this particular way, or at this time of the day, or whatever. And to me, that is very damaging, because right now, we are on the verge in this country of just going over the deep end. And in many ways, we're already there. And we have got to get the attention, especially of Catholics, and continue to wake up this sleeping giant, which is just about, what, a quarter of the population, if you look at the numbers. And now time is of the essence, and thanks be to God, we have Catholic radio and EWTN television and EWTN radio, but we need to make sure we are using those airwaves in the best possible way to make sure every single day part of radio, every single day part, and I believe we're doing that. We're trying to do it to the best of our ability, but we need to keep strong. And not that we hit people over the head and scare everybody and say the sky is falling, but there is an urgency. There is an urgency, and people need to wake up. And I get concerned sometimes, because I get a feeling from some people, oh, you know, let's just be a little bit, you know, what did Our Lady of Fatima say? That sexual sins, right? That was the biggest thing that was causing people to go to hell.
Right.
You know, excuse my French, but I mean, absolutely.
Why was that French? I thought that was English.
You know what I mean?
You know, and then of course another topic we cover, of course, is marriage and the wedding. You know, and how couples are very focused on, of course, you know, the party, the dress, the reception, the flowers, and all those details.
As a matter of fact, can I tell you a secret?
What?
What I tell grooms to be is that their wife to be has been planning her wedding since she's 4.
Right, little girl, right.
And her mother has too. Only they just started talking about it.
That's good.
Yeah. So it's.
So what we cover, we interviewed a couple basically who had a good focus on they were more focused on the Mass than all the other trappings. And you know, we delved into that and a little bit about the pre-Cana preparation and what goes on.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. Or lack thereove.
All right. Well, I'm afraid we've got to take a break.
We'll take a breath.
We'll take a breath.
We're going to come back, and we're going to hear about EWTN's 20th anniversary of radio. You know, Teresa Tomeo is one of the people on radio. I do some radio, and you know, there's lots of radio, and it's really growing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, as well as come back with your questions and your comments. So please stay with us. welcome back. Welcome back. We want to, first of all, before we do anything else, we want to introduce you to Doug Sherman. He's on the phone. He's the president and founder of Immaculate Heart Radio. And he just launched our 180th affiliate on the air in San Diego, California. Hello, Doug, you there?
Hello, Father Mitch. Good to be with you.
Oh, it's good to be with you. Congratulations on the San Diego launch.
Well, thank you. It's been just an overwhelming day here with, I think you might have some video clip there of Bishop Flores, who's the new
Yes, we do have a video clip
of San Diego, flipping the switch along with San Diego Charger quarterback Phillip Rivers to turn our station on, which for Immaculate Heart Radio, this is our 28th or 26th station, counting our translators. But to be there with Bishop Flores today, and 500 people attended the Mass and the celebration before he flipped the switch. But to hear his beautiful homily at just a fabulous parish here in San Diego, but to hear him preach about the importance of Catholic radio to form our culture and to form our people, to be able to hear Christ in the midst of all of the noise in our current culture. It was really tremendous.
I was thinking back on the mid-90s when we were at the first radio conference, back in San Francisco area. Do you remember that?
That's where I first met you.
Right.
And somebody there today was at that. A couple of people were there at that same conference. Jerry Usher was our MC.
Right.
But
that's right.
Yeah, that's right. You were there, and Scott Hahn was there.
Exactly. And what a distance we have gone from there, where there were just a couple of radio stations. Now you're number 180.
Yes. And at that time of that conference, Father Mitch, I think there were maybe 10 Catholic radio stations in the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, now we reach millions through shortwave radio, EWTN Spanish radio. It's plus the 180 in around this country, and this is 20 years of Mother Angelica having a vision of not only including television but radio to broadcast the gospel, and we're so glad to have you as part of it. So thank you very much, Doug.
Well, thank you, Father Mitch. This almost brings an end to our statewide campaign.
Oh, great. Congratulations.
We only have one more city to go.
Good.
Los Angeles.
Well, that's a big one. You might need a couple of stations for Los Angeles.
We just need a miracle.
Yes, we do. I'm sure you'll get it. The Lord's been very good so far.
Yes, that's true.
All right. Well, God bless you, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Father Mitch.
All right. Now, I want to welcome you back with our guests, the Catholic View for Women. We've got Astrid and Janet and Teresa with us. And we want to also let you know that you can get the first season of the Catholic View for Women on DVD by going to EWTNreligiouscatalog.com. That's EWTNreligiouscatalog.com. And they've also got All Things Girl on DVD, which is also at the catalog. And the book Extreme Makeover by Teresa Tomeo is also on the EWTN Religious Catalog. So you can get all of these great things and learn more and more about how women who are Catholics can make a great impact on the culture. All right, you ready for some questions?
Absolutely.
Oh, before we go to questions, I almost forgot. You brought a very nice statue of the Blessed Mother. What's this statue called?
It's called
Janet's idea. I'll let her
Kitchen
take
Madonna, or the Madonna of the Kitchen.
Madonna of the Kitchen.
Right, and it's available, of course, the Religious Catalog.
Religious Catalog has that.
In planning the shows, basically, we decided we needed to have an image of Mary as the model, and you know, a lot of other images like pro-life shows, we use Lady Guadalupe and other images. And so actually I was here at the network filming our Defending Life series with Father Pavone. I went into the gift shop here and I saw the Madonna of the Kitchen. I never knew about it. And when I saw it, I said, oh my goodness, this is perfect. Because, you know, women love to be in the kitchen, you know, whether you're a single person or married or whatever, you spend time in the kitchen.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the show we did about college students, we even said it would be great for college kids for their dorm, right between the microwave and the hot plate.
There you go.
And the funny story I have about this is I put it on my table at Thanksgiving right after I purchased it. And suddenly, I normally have to tell everyone to drop the forks, you know, and let's have grace before they start, you know, passing the dishes and conversation. And she was there, the Madonna, just nice and quiet. And suddenly my son-in-law, Mike, tapped on the table and said, excuse me, everybody. Let's say grace. And I really credit Our Lady here, the Madonna of the Kitchen, for being there as a presence, because it just kind of focused them all on, oh, we should be praying. So she really does work miracles in the kitchen and at the table.
Let me take a look at that and show you something that I noticed as a gentleman. This is Our Lady holding a pot,
That's right.
a spoon, and a broom. Clearly Our Lady of multitasking.
Multitasker, that's right.
All right, let's go to our question here from our studio audience. Sir, where are you from?
From Lincoln, Nebraska.
Great, and what's your question?
My question is, now that the Blount Amendment has been defeated in Congress, how is the Catholic Church going to ensure that our hospitals and our colleges that have been so wonderful are not shut down?
Okay, and do you know what the Blount?
Yes, that was the amendment that was in Congress that was actually trying, or in the Senate, that was actually trying to expand the exemption. The exemption is just absolutely ridiculous. The so-called compromise or exemption that the Obama administration handed down is anything but a compromise and anything but, you know, an exemption. It's absolutely ridiculous. But since that was defeated, there are other efforts that are in Congress. However, it's important to note that the most, I think, really, I think this is going to be one in the courts or at the polls. That's what we're stressing on my show, on Catholic Connection, also on Crest in the afternoon, that it really is important to make sure that, you know, you are standing up for this as an individual, but at the same time, we have to back organizations such as EWTN, which was the first one to file the lawsuit. Priests for Life is sued, and there's also other things going on in the courts. But to make sure,
Ave Maria University has sued.
Has sued, right? There's a number of
places.
different ones, right? And we have a very special website that Ave Maria started, radio, called StopHHS.com, raising awareness and a petition drive. So there's a lot of efforts, but I think number one, most importantly, is our bishops are doing an incredible job right now in terms of leadership, and they have joined together. Every single bishop has written a letter. Activities continue. They are educating the flock, and so we need to stand behind our bishops and also to, God willing, pray that these court cases go in our favor.
All right, let's go to a phone call. Oh, we have an audience first. All right, an audience question. Ma'am, where are you from?
Gulf Breeze, Florida.
And what's your question?
My daughter has 4 children, and she's now practicing natural family planning. A lot of the other family members and friends are making fun of her. Where does she go for support?
Janet, you want to take that?
Well, I mean, there are, I would say, first of all, to contact the NFP groups that she might be aware of, because they are aware of where there are local support mechanisms. But within the parish, I would check out Elizabeth's Ministry and other groups like that are in a lot of parishes. And those are really as support groups for mothers and families who are really following the church's teaching and support groups. So there might be a group like that in her parish or a nearby parish.
Any other suggestions on that?
Well, I would think your local pro-life offices too, and
Right.
to let the diocese or the archdiocese that you're in, they usually have, and the USCCB actually on their website has a lot of information on natural family planning and different ministries around the country, and the USCCB website is usccb.org, and then you can actually go into the life section on that website, and there's a lot of information there on NFP and different groups around the country.
But see, the problem is she's being made fun of. Now, as my own response is that I would suggest she learn how to be a better wise guy.
Yeah,
And
We've become very good at that.
We're very good at
yeah.
Okay.
And you do have to have thick skin. I mean,
Yeah.
because you will be painted as a zealot,
Right.
that you have 3 or 4 heads. But you know what? As Scripture tells us, count it all joy. Because this is, the Lord, he came upon his own, but his own accepted him not. So that's our call as Christians, to be persecuted.
I had a pro-life license plate, and every time I used to pull up to a party, some wise guy would always say to me, well, Janet, one of these days you're going to spray paint your license plate over, things like that. But you have to just smile and go, well, I'm sure that would be a nice thing to do, but I'm going to still stand up for the unborn. I mean, so like Teresa's saying, sometimes you have to grow a little bit of a tough skin because you're doing it God's way, and He'll continue to give you all the grace and peace knowing you're doing the right thing.
And also to form her mind. I would recommend for her to listen to Contraception Why Not by Janet Smith.
That's right.
And just basically share that CD. It's very easy to do, and have answers for people. Why do you do this? Does it really work? Have good answers for people. And it might be intriguing for them to know. And all the studies, Father, are bearing out the fact that this is better. Even people who are into the organic, hormone, chemical-free lifestyle, well, this fits perfectly into it. Even the secular world is buying into the NFP mentality. So she can share some really good insight about NFP and the fact that less than 1% of couples that use NFP divorce. I think that's powerful to share with the couple that's trying to keep their marriage together.
People who contracept then use natural.
I always think it's funny, you speak about being a wise guy. These people think that they're so smart, the ones who contracept and do all this stuff, and yet they talk about they have the homemade granola and they buy the soy milk and then they're taking birth control pills. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're putting a group 1 carcinogen into your body, which the pill was declared in the group 1 carcinogen category by the World Health Organization, 7 years ago. And they're all healthy and they're all that in a bag of chips, but meanwhile they're putting all this garbage in their bodies. That makes sense.
Let's go to a phone call. Hello, Margaret?
Yes.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Colorado. I can't understand what happened to chastity. I mean, I'm 85 years old, and I know the girl's body is no different than mine when I was young. And we wouldn't even have thought about anything like this, about having sex before marriage. What happened to these girls? What's in their minds? I don't understand it.
The media.
How could you want to even marry a guy that's been with everybody else?
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Margaret. That's we need to put you on TV.
Well, I can agree. I mean, I was born in '52, so I can understand what she's saying. When I was a young girl growing up, girls did not sleep around. It was not a thing. But you get to about the mid '60s, and the culture really broke wide open. A sexual revolution happened. The fashions all changed. Necklines plunged. Skirts went up higher. I distinctly remember. Funny story. Back in 1968, I was in high school. Romeo and Juliet, a movie, showed partial nudity. Catholic Church condemned the movie, and me and my girlfriends all ran out to see it. So what I'm trying to say is this has been a gradual saturation, both of the change of morals on TV and movies, and now, like Teresa can tell you, it's all over the media. So I think it's been the country gradually pendulum swinging so far over, but I mean, that's really what it is.
At the same time, Father, there's a lot of hope in our culture. We see people like Cassandra Huff, who started the Anscombe Society at Princeton University, and now she has a full network, the Love and Fidelity Network, and there are chastity groups on the Harvard campus and Yale campus that are the answer to things like the Sex Week at, Yale University. So there are students that are saying, enough is enough. We're tired of this culture. Let's have a new sexual revolution. Let's really bring people back to sanity. And that's what a lot of young people are doing.
But one of the things to answer Margaret is that it is typical for the media to portray that a date is not going out to see a movie and get some coffee and pie afterwards.
No.
But it's about, and that's what I used to do on a date, 42 years ago, but who remembers?
Right. No, nowadays it's assumed that you go out on a date and you end up in bed. I mean, really, that's what the culture is saying.
Right.
And these new phrases like friends with benefits, I mean, that's horrible.
Or the hooked up culture. That's the new phraseology out there now.
But what Astrid is saying, which I think is true, there are more and more groups springing up on college campuses that are going into challenging this and wanting chastity. And there's even some groups that are talking about the second chance, like if you've already lost your virginity, making reclaim it and re-promise to live a chaste life. So this is springing up. It's just that because the media, as Teresa can tell you, with the Parents Television Council and all these other statistics, it's so saturated, you don't think we're making progress. But we're beginning, by our experiences, seeing the pendulum beginning to swing back.
But it's an uphill battle because according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, most young people are using media 53 hours a week, and adults aren't much better at about 42 hours a week. And I would love to think that they're all watching EWTN, but I don't think that's realistic. So if you look at the amount of sexual content on television, which is over 75% of the TV content contains sexuality, and that's primetime programming, regular daytime programming as well. You see nothing but sex, 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 and then all the other messages that are given. The reality TV shows are horrible now with cable, and so this is what we're up against. But there is always hope.
Let's go to another call. We have Jack on the line. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Father. Thank you for taking my phone call.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm in Media, Pennsylvania, Father.
And what's your question?
Quick question. You know, it looks like Obama was voted into office because he got 52 to 54% of the Catholic vote, and recent surveys of Catholics indicate that like 66 to 70% agree with this HHMS mandate. And I'm wondering, playing devil's advocate, you know, it said that God gives us the leaders we deserve. Maybe we're getting the legislation we deserve as a result of this. So I'll leave it at that. I'd like your response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack.
Well, I think that statistic was one that actually, and I'm familiar with the survey that he's referring to, that actually was a statistic that came out fairly early after January 20th, when the story about Sebelius releasing the statement on the mandate. And that actually survey was not accurate. It was one that the media picked up on and used. And when you broke it down, that survey, and actually looked at the numbers, the Catholics were actually much more in favor of a compromise, or at least the church not having to go against its religious liberty and its rights of conscience. And so I think obviously he does have an excellent point where a lot of people have been poorly catechized. That's why EWTN came into existence. But I think now when people get the understanding, and that's why we need to keep hitting this over and over and over again, because there's an old saying that if you want someone to get something or hear you, you have to say it at least 7 times, you know, and repeat it that many times. But it is going to take a lot of catechesis in a short period of time about this specific issue. But what we're noticing is the surveys have been lately, in the last, I would say in the last month or so, since this whole story really started to get a real big push, is that the Catholics, even if they're not the Catholics that, you know, are doing more than just going to Mass once a week, even the Catholics who aren't so active are supporting the church in this effort.
Any other comments?
Well, no, I just find, and I think Teresa and I have had experience with this, just people we come in contact with still don't completely understand what the mandate is all about. You know, they're just not fully informed. And I think when you take the time to fully explain to them what this is about, it's not the church keeping birth control from women, because that's what the media is making it sound like.
Exactly.
Oh,
right.
Oh, the poor women are going to be denied their pills. No, that's not what this is about. So I think what we have to do, and I always tell everybody, look, if you understand the truth and you have the facts, you have an obligation to work within your circle of influence, your family and friends, and explain the mandate and explain what the church is trying to do. We all just can't sit back and wait for people like Teresa on a radio program and some of the bishops in their statements. We're called also to shed the light into the darkness. And so I always tell people, you're responsible for your family and friends and educating them.
I also think sometimes we can get frustrated because of the lack of teaching that has gone on and sit back and say, oh, well, look, we're getting what we deserve. And I'm not saying that the gentleman is saying that, but I have heard that frustration among some people. But that's not the right attitude, because the bishops we have now are the good guys. I mean, they're the ones who, God love them, survived and came through a very, very tumultuous time in the church to lead us now. And they're the ones who are really taking the charge, and, you know, led by, of course, Archbishop, now Cardinal Dolan in New York. And so we really need to stand behind them in the efforts that they're making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's have another question from our studio audience. Where are you? First of all, what are you and what are you doing here?
I'm a seminarian from the Diocese of St. Cloud. I'm studying at Immaculate Heart of Mary Seminary in Moranna.
Okay, great.
We've gone on a small pilgrimage for
I
spring
thought
break,
it was
so.
something like that. Now, what's your question?
My question is, what would be your female response and to the situation that's going on today with the demasculinization of men in our society?
That's a great question.
And with like our sitcom shows and stuff, portraying men as kind of being worthless.
And our school system.
Absolutely. Well, our show basically focuses on women's issues, but naturally there is another side to the story. It all affects men. That's really important that we bring that out. I want to talk about my state in particular, California, for example. We have a state here that allows abortion all 9 months, where a wife can get an abortion without her husband knowing, where a father cannot protect his 12-year-old daughter from getting an abortion because he will not even know. She can get a secret abortion. So basically, men that have been given by God this instinct to protect their family, their spouse, their loved ones, they're being taken that right. So basically, they're being denied, and I think emasculated in that way by our culture, by the culture of death. And so basically we're bringing that out, that when a woman has an abortion, a man is also being denied his fatherhood and his right to protect his family. So I think that we've really lowered the expectations and in effect taken away men's rights that I think God has given them. So we have to correct that, and I think women have to understand that we are not in competition with men. We're meant to be partners with them. We're brothers and sisters, and I think that our show hopefully will bring that out. Then as we heal ourselves, our hearts, and help to heal the culture, everything will be restored.
And even in abortion, they make it seem like it's just a woman's issue. And I know from the experience of the Silent No More Awareness campaign, now we have more and more men coming forward with their testimonies, seeking healing on Rachel's Vineyard weekends. And actually now they come out and hold their signs and say, I regret lost fatherhood.
Well, some of the shows, though, that the seminarian was mentioning, even some of the shows that might be considered a little bit, quote-unquote, safe, and of course it's in reruns now, but Everybody Loves Raymond, even that show, every single male character was portrayed as someone who just couldn't survive and couldn't literally walk out the door without the help of his wife or a woman on the show. And so there's this constant message out there, even in commercials, men are emasculated, and they're shown that, women don't need men for anything. I mean, who was it? I think it really is the result of what, heaven help us, Gloria Steinem said so many years ago that, oh, women need a man like fish needs a bicycle. And that just took on a life of its own, and we're seeing that, and it permeates through the media, and he's absolutely right. And it's damaging. It's very damaging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you think that, one of the things that it's not only in the media, this is one place, but it's also going on in schools.
Oh, yeah.
So that now less than half of the college students are men, and that there's a bias against boys in the school system from the early grades forward. And this is a problem. Does that have a negative effect on women?
Sure it does. If you're not understanding, and not even from, let's take for a second, I know we're a Catholic network, but even if you're not looking at it from a religious perspective, sociology, science backs up the importance of that relationship and that interaction, that proper relationship between the sexes. I mean, this is not rocket science. I mean, I have a journalism degree. I don't have a biology degree or a sociology degree, but you can look at it out at society and see what happens when these relationships are not, ordered in a fashion of natural law, which is what we're talking about here. So sure, over and over again you see that. And you see what happens when the father isn't in the home. I have a good friend of mine, Michael Timmis, who runs Prison Fellowship International, took over for Chuck Colson, and he tells me, he says, if you look at the prison systems, it's the breakdown of the family and the lack of fatherhood and that role in the family that has a lot to do with what's going on and why the prison systems are so filled right now.
As a matter of fact, one of the amazing statistics I've heard is that 85% of the people in prison come from single family homes.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And usually it's a single mom.
Right.
Usually a single mom. Mm-hmm. And there's that absence of fatherhood that seems to be damaged because, by the time a boy is 14, he's at least as big as his mother and sometimes bigger, and just going to get bigger. Right. And so she's in a certain amount of danger from him as well. He'll do what he pleases.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah. I mean, I used to see this firsthand. I used to teach in an inner city school in New York, and mostly single mothers. I mean, fathers were like, sadly, a lot of the fathers were in prison. And the things I used to have to deal with was when it was visitation week and a mother taking the children up to prison to see the father. And it's very sad, very sad. Mm-hmm.
And some of these people, Father, that have been the architects of the culture of death, as I study for my own pro-life work, I see people that are the famous atheists, Nietzsche, all these people that basically help to build up this culture of death that we have. And the commonality they have is that they have an absent father, a father who left them, or basically is not there. So fatherhood is so essential, and we are diminishing that role, and the more that we diminish that role, the more that society suffers.
And if we hear, of course, this causes a lot of problem in the spiritual life too, because if you don't have a father figure, then how can you relate to God the Father. And you have a problem, and you may not even realize it, but in the back of your mind, there's this undercurrent that's running a theme. Well, I've never had a father who's been present in my life, or was abandoned or abused. And I think there's a lot of problem with women who have a hard time relating to men and to God the Father, or even to the Lord, because of the male figure.
Well, if women have been abused,
exactly.
they're going to have a very bad impression of men.
That's right.
You know, that goes without saying.
That's right.
Which is so sad when you think about Jesus and how he was. And I have a chapter in my book, Extreme Makeover, Our Biggest Fan, Our Greatest Liberator. And that's the favorite chapter of mine in my new book, because when you read about Jesus and you see the way he interacted with women, he was so far ahead of his time. Mm-hmm. And for women of our age not to understand that, it just breaks my heart.
Mm-hmm. 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 Any other comments?
Well, we also touch on the fact that our church is becoming more and more inclusive of minorities. The Hispanic community is just growing all the time.
Yes.
So that we acknowledge those groups and the beauty that they have. They are, many of them are, Catholic. They bring with them these traditions, but then unfortunately, being in a society, being immigrants, they begin to lose them. They begin to be a little bit brainwashed by the mainstream media.
It's the very common experience of a lot of immigrants that they try extra hard to be like members of the society, to assimilate.
Right, to assimilate. And it really breaks my heart when I began to do pro-life work to understand that Hispanics are pro-life, and yet they vote pro-death. They vote for pro-abortion politicians. And in my state, all the Catholic, quote-unquote, Hispanic politicians are all pro-abortion. I can't understand that. And so we're trying to see how we can better catechize our Hispanic people so that they know the truth. As Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. That's happening so much in our Hispanic community. So the mission of Hispanics for Life, where I work, is to basically try to preserve those values and that Catholic faith that the Hispanics bring with them. I think Scott Hahn called the Hispanics missionaries, where they bring a strong faith to our society, and it could be a blessing to our society.
I'm afraid that we are running out of time.
We just say thanks to one person who's been
real quickly.
I wanted to say thanks. We do have a spiritual director on the program, and that's been Father Frank Pavone with Priests for Life, and he's really been wonderful for us and given us all kinds of documents and reflections, and this show would not have been the show it is without his input. So we want to thank him.
Thank you all very much for being here with us. I appreciate it very much. And may Almighty God bless you and keep you and guide you in all of your ways by his peace, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And we can bring you this new series, Catholic View for Women. And these guests, this program, and all the other programs, only because you make this network possible. You bring it to you. So we ask you, please keep us in between your gas bill, your electric bill, and your cable bill, and we'll pay all of our bills. Thank you.